Hi, I'm covering the game between Wesley and Dariusz Swiercz from the round 2 of US Championship. And let's see how it went. We had the Moscow variation of the Sicilian, which leads to a position with a slight edge for white. And in this position, black chose Queen G4, which is a rare line. Usually it's played CD4, leading to Maroczy bind positions. But here Wesley Swiercz played Queen G4 and we got completely different type of position. And here they exchanged queens. And both moves are possible, both Knight D1 or King D1. Wesley chose King D1. Wesley chose Knight D1. If he chose King D1, that's also acceptable. After CD4, Knight B5, Rook C8, B3, and it's basically a trade of D4 and D4 pawns. But after Bishop E3, white is slightly better because black is lagging in development, and also he might be able to use his pawn majority on the queen side. So in this position I prefer being white. Instead, Wesley chose Knight D1, and the nature of position is completely different now. Black took, of course, and now white defends his f3 pawn, defends his c4 pawn, and now he threatens to go bishop b2 to use the fact that this d4 pawn is weak at the moment. So black has to do something quickly, and he plays e5, defends this pawn. So now white doesn't do anything about it, doesn't take en passant, because it would just get another pawn on e6, and now black will play e5, and still this d4 pawn would not be weak. Instead, he tries to expand on the king side with g4. Black develops. And now he doesn't want to sit and wait. He wants to make something on the king side, because white is the one who has majority on the queen side, and after a while he would start pushing, preparing b4, c5 on the queen side, which would mean that he would create a passed pawn. So black tries something on the king side. And now normally white wants to put his knight on d3 to block this passed pawn, and in some cases to push f4 or to prepare a break with b4, c5 to create a passed pawn on the queen side, like I said. We have this, and now black, like I said, he doesn't want to wait in this position, and he plays f5. Because if he just waits with something like g6, king g7, white would just go rook h c1, prepare b4, c5, double the rooks on c file if needed, and then go for this break of which is c5. Or even before that, to push a4, a5 to fix this b pawn, so he can be able to push more easily c5. Instead, he went for f5, which is correct way to approach this position. Wesley took gf, and now after rook g1 check, king h7. Now a crucial mistake happened. Black made a mistake and played h4 here. Instead, he should have played something like rook g8. And probably black was afraid of rook h3, but here he could have played rook g2, and after knight f2, he should have given up the pawn. And after he takes it, goes back, Black plays f5, and now this rook is awkwardly placed on h3. Rook g3 doesn't help at all, because you can just go back to f6 or f7. Let's pick f6. And now if you take, probably it's better to go to f7 to have ideas like bishop h4 in the end. So if they exchange, now bishop h4 is coming, knight f6, and I think that black has sufficient compensation for a lost pawn. But instead he played a move h4, which leads to a very, very tough position for black, and you'll see why. Wesley played rook g4, and now black is forced to play f5, because all of a sudden white is threatening all sorts of mates with rook ag1, rook takes h4. And now he needs to go f5, and this solves the problem temporarily, because you defend h4, but you allow white to activate his his knight even more. ef, rook f5, rook ag1, and now you see g7 square is available for rooks to enter. But Swiercz goes rook e8 here. If he went for bishop f6, white would simply go knight f2 with knight e4 next. Let's say he goes rook f8, knight e4, and now d6 is very weak. But if you go bishop e7, he has rook g7 and the bishop hangs. So that was not an option at all. Black is just overextended too much. If he went for rook f7, the same idea. Knight f2. If knight c5, first rook g6, threatening the checkmate on h6. And if bishop f8, then you kick this knight away with b4. And after knight d7, knight e4, and again, d6 is so weak. Rook c4 is not possible because of knight d6 and double attack on the rooks. And you cannot capture, of course, because this is a checkmate. And also, if you try something like rook g7, white just takes and takes on d6, and this pawn avalanche in the center is going to decide. Instead, he went for rook e8, which is a sad decision because it allows rook g7, and white plays knight f2, knight f6, but now this is inevitable. Rook g7, king h8, and now he's even pinning black's rook on f5. Black tries to step away from this pin, but now white goes rook g6, threatening to capture on f6 and gain two minor pieces for a rook. He escapes it, but now knight goes to a very strong outpost on e4 after a couple of more moves. Now everything is weak. d6, h4, and white chooses to pick up h4 next. Look at this constellation of rooks. d6 pawn is going to hang, and in this position Swiercz chose to resign. Thank you for watching, and see you later.